The March evening in Seattle was damp, heavy with the scent of wet pavement and lingering snow. The storm from earlier had melted into thin ribbons of water sliding along the gutters, catching the amber glow of street lamps. People hurried past with hunched shoulders and quick steps, as if the whole city had agreed to escape the cold together. Nathan Hayes walked against the current, his coat collar turned up, one arm balancing the small weight of his daughter. Lily's pink scarf, slightly frayed at the ends, was wrapped twice around her neck, and her mittened hands clung to him as if the air itself might carry her away. She pressed her cheeks to his, giggling when he pretended to stumble. At 37, Nathan carried himself with the quiet heaviness of someone who had lived through a before and an after. Once there had been a wife, a home filled with music and soft light. Then came the silence, the hollow kind that no business meeting or signed contract could fill. He had built Westbridge Enterprises into a tower that scraped the sky, yet every evening he returned to an apartment where bedtime stories were the only thing that made sense. He shouldn't have been out tonight. He knew it, but Mark had pleaded. Just cover for me. One dinner. Meet her, make sure she's not crazy. I'll owe you. Nathan had refused, then resisted, then finally relented. Not because he wanted to, but because the alternative was another night of staring at the ceiling, replaying the past. Still, he needed protection. A shield. That shield was Lily. No woman expected romance when a 4-year-old sat at the table with crayons and a stuffed rabbit. If the evening ended before dessert, all the better. Daddy? Lily murmured, her curls brushing his chin. Are we going on an adventure? Nathan smiled faintly, though the answer in his chest was heavier. Just dinner, sweetheart. Nothing more. The words tasted like a lie. He wasn't searching for beginnings. Tonight was only about getting through. One polite smile, one unfinished glass of wine, and then home. Yet as he adjusted Lily's weight and stepped toward the waiting car, a flicker of unease stirred within him, like the first tremor of a storm he hadn't seen coming. The streets were slick with leftover rain, each puddle trembling under the weight of headlights. Nathan shifted Lily on his hip as they turned the corner toward the restaurant. He was rehearsing excuses in his mind. Apologies for bringing a child, reasons to leave early, when a sharp voice cut through the night. At the curb, a bus had stopped, its doors still open. A young woman stood at the bottom step, arguing quietly with the driver. She carried a worn canvas backpack with a frayed strap, her wool hat slipping back to reveal damp strands of hair. I paid, she said, her voice calm but edged. You must have misread the transfer. The driver shook his head, impatient. Expired. It's $1.50 more. The woman's shoulders tightened. I don't have extra. Just take me 2 stops. Please. The driver sighed, his hand hovering over the console. Rules are rules. Nathan hesitated. This wasn't his fight. He could keep walking, head to dinner, pretend he hadn't heard. But Lily had already lifted her head, watching with wide eyes. Daddy? She whispered, tugging at his coat. She looked sad. Nathan stepped closer. How much? The driver glanced at him, surprised. $1.50. Nathan tapped his phone against the reader. Quick beep. Done. There, he said. The woman turned sharply. No, don't. Her eyes flashed with something fiercer than gratitude. I can handle it. It's nothing, Nathan replied. Get where you need to go. For a moment she didn't move. Then, reluctantly, she climbed the step. She gave him a small nod, tight, almost formal, and disappeared into the bus. The doors folded shut, the engine growled, and red taillights slid into the wet night. Nathan shifted Lily again and started walking. He told himself it was over, just a small interruption. But the look on the woman's face lingered. Pride and exhaustion bound together. He had gone only half a block when footsteps hurried behind him. He turned. It was her, the woman from the bus. She jogged up, breathing quickly, holding out a crumpled bill. You overpaid, she said. The words came fast, but her hand didn't shake. It was only the difference for the base fare. Please, take it back. Nathan blinked. It's fine. Keep it. She shook her head. I'd rather not. The bill trembled in the air between them. I don't take favors I didn't earn. He hesitated, then accepted it, their fingers brushing for the briefest moment. Her hand was cold. Thank you, she said, softer now, as if the words themselves were weighty. She glanced at Lily, who peered curiously from his arms. She's brave, she added quietly. And then she turned, the strap of her backpack sliding against her shoulder, and walked away into the night. Nathan stood still, the damp air settling around him. A stranger, a crumpled dollar, and a pride that seemed too heavy for someone her age. He should have forgotten her instantly, but he didn't. The image of her face, worn, determined, stayed as he adjusted Lily's scarf and resumed their path toward the waiting dinner. The restaurant was one of those places meant to feel relaxed, though the dim lighting and carefully arranged candles suggested effort behind every detail. Soft jazz hummed from hidden speakers, mixing with the low murmur of conversations. The windows were fogged from the damp night, and coats dripped quietly on brass hooks near the door. Nathan gave Mark's name at the host's stand and followed the waiter past a thicket of tables. Lily rested drowsily against his shoulder, her mittens still tucked under his collar. Nathan rehearsed the lines he'd planned. Apologies for bringing a child, the promise of a short evening, polite excuses. Then the waiter stopped at a corner table. A woman sat waiting, her hands folded around a glass of water. A worn backpack leaned against her chair, patched at the strap with a stitched star. Nathan froze. She looked up. It was her, the woman from the bus. Lily stirred, blinking at the sight, then broke into a grin. Dad, she whispered loudly, pointing. It's the bus lady. For a moment, Nathan could only stand there, stunned. The woman, Emma, as he would soon learn, looked equally surprised. But instead of recoiling, she smiled faintly at Lily. Hi again, she said gently. I promise there won't be any bus drivers here tonight. Lily giggled, burying her face in Nathan's collar. Nathan cleared his throat, setting Lily down in the spare chair. You're Mark's friend. Emma's expression softened into something amused. Apparently, she gestured toward the empty seats. Please, sit, both of you. He lowered himself slowly, still disoriented. This wasn't supposed to happen. The entire plan, bringing Lily, cutting the night short, was built on the assumption that tonight would be forgettable. But here was the woman whose pride had made her chase him down over $1. Lily leaned across the table, elbows on the linen. Do you like carrots? She asked Emma with sudden seriousness. Emma pretended to think. Only if they're in cake. Lily gasped. Carrot cake. The very best kind, Emma said, lowering her voice like it was a secret. No vegetables allowed. Lily clapped her hands and looked triumphant. Nathan found himself exhaling a laugh before he could stop it. Menus arrived. The waiter poured water. Nathan kept searching for a way out, an easy escape, but Emma's calm presence disarmed him. She didn't seem fazed by Lily's chatter or the oddity of the situation. Instead, she engaged the little girl like she was the only person at the table who mattered. Do you draw? Emma asked. Lily nodded eagerly. Butterflies, and sometimes rainbows. Those are my favorites too, Emma said. She picked up her napkin and, with a half smile, began folding it into uneven wings. See? A butterfly. She set it before Lily, who squealed in delight. Nathan watched silently. There was no calculation in Emma's gestures, no attempt to impress. She seemed more at ease with crayons and napkins than with small talk. For the first time that evening, Nathan's shoulders began to lower. The weight of pretense, of rehearsed lines, slipped just slightly. Still, awkwardness lingered between them. Every time their eyes met, he thought of the bus, the crumpled dollar, her insistence on pride. She wasn't supposed to be here, yet here she was, turning a blind date into something neither of them had expected. When the waiter returned for their orders, Emma surprised him again. She glanced at Lily, then back at Nathan. Why don't we get something we can all share? Kids eat better when everyone's plate looks the same. Nathan nodded slowly. That's a good idea. And just like that, the evening shifted. It was still strange, still fragile, but the sharp edge of formality had dulled. Instead of counting minutes until he could leave, Nathan found himself listening. To Lily's bubbling laughter, to Emma's easy warmth, to the hum of a night he hadn't planned for and couldn't quite predict. Dinner arrived with quiet efficiency. Simple plates of pasta, roasted vegetables, bread still warm from the oven. Lily insisted on buttering her own slice, leaving half of it in clumps. Emma reached over to help, her touch light, her voice playful. "That bread deserves a little kindness too." Lily beamed, proud of her crooked masterpiece. Nathan almost smiled, though he kept his fork moving with practiced distraction. He had spent years in rooms where silence was filled with numbers and negotiations. Here, the silence felt different. Waiting. It was Emma who broke it. "I work at a community arts center," she said, twirling her fork through pasta. "It's small, tucked between a laundromat and a discount store. We run workshops, painting, theater, music. Nothing fancy, but the kids come alive when you give them brushes or stage lights." Nathan raised an eyebrow. "That's your full-time job?" She shook her head. "It barely pays rent, so I tutor on the side. Math, English, whatever keeps the lights on." She said it plainly, without complaint. Lily interrupted, pointing to the butterfly napkin still beside her plate. "Do you make those for the kids too?" Emma nodded. "Paper, cloth, cardboard. Anything becomes art if you look at it long enough." Nathan studied her, unsettled by her ease. Most people he met reached for titles, for hints of ambition. Emma spoke as though the worth of her work wasn't measured in promotions or salaries, but in crayons and laughter. She took a sip of water, then added softly, "I had a scholarship once, full ride to college. But my sister was 15 when our parents died. I couldn't leave her, so I stayed. Worked nights, kept her in school. She's in college now, first in our family." Her tone was matter-of-fact, but Nathan caught the flicker in her eyes, pride woven with fatigue. "That must have been hard," he said quietly. Emma shrugged. "Sometimes you don't choose the path. Sometimes it chooses you." Nathan expected her to pivot, to ask about him, about Westbridge, about the skyscraper that bore his company's name. Most people did, but she didn't. Her gaze returned instead to Lily, who was scribbling shapes on the paper menu with a stubby crayon Emma had pulled from her bag. "What are you drawing?" Emma asked. "A family," Lily said. "Me, Daddy, and—" She hesitated, glancing at Emma shyly. Emma smiled, not pushing. "Maybe you'll show me when you're done." Nathan watched the exchange in silence. His company was worth billions. His name appeared in magazines he never read. Yet across the table sat a woman more interested in a child's crooked rainbow than in his portfolio. The realization unsettled him, and quietly it softened him too. Dessert arrived almost by accident. A single slice of chocolate cake Lily had begged for with wide eyes and sticky fingers. Nathan had intended to decline, but Emma had smiled at the waiter and said, "1 fork, 3 spoons. We'll share." The cake was messy, rich, gone too quickly. Lily licked the last smear of icing from her spoon with a satisfied sigh. Nathan dabbed her mouth with a napkin, his mind already moving to the exit. How soon, how politely, how neatly this evening could end. But when the bill arrived, something made him pause. An old instinct, part defense, part curiosity. He reached for his coat pocket, then stopped deliberately. He looked at Emma. "I think I forgot my wallet." The words hung there, a small test hidden behind casual tone. In his world, money was the invisible weight behind every gesture, every silence. He wanted to see how she carried it, or if she would set it down. Emma didn't flinch. She reached calmly into her own bag, pulled out a worn leather wallet, and slid her card onto the tray. "Then I guess it's on me." Nathan frowned. "That's not necessary." "Of course it is," she said lightly. "I definitely ate more of the cake." Lily giggled. "You did." Emma winked at her. "See? A reliable witness." The waiter swept away with the bill, leaving Nathan caught off guard. He had expected hesitation, discomfort, perhaps even offense. Not this. Not ease. You don't even know me, he said slowly. Emma tilted her head. Not everything has to be a transaction, Nathan. Her voice softened, but her eyes stayed steady. Sometimes kindness is just dinner. The words landed with quiet force. He felt something shift inside him. Not dramatic, not sudden, but like a lock quietly turning after years of rust. He had built a life on contracts, clauses, guarantees, on making sure every risk was managed, every outcome controlled. Yet here sat a woman who treated generosity as ordinary, uncalculated. "Thank you," he said, and realized he meant it more deeply than the words suggested. Emma smiled faintly, then turned back to Lily. "Next time you get to pick the dessert." "Strawberry pie," Lily declared instantly. Nathan watched them, the edge of his test dissolving into something else. Something he hadn't expected to find tonight. The rhythm of the next 2 weeks came as something Nathan hadn't anticipated. A string of small coincidences that gradually became deliberate choices. First, it was the coffee shop on Pine. Nathan had ducked in one morning, Lily clinging to his leg, insisting she deserved a muffin bigger than her hand. He had been scanning the pastry case when he saw her, Emma, sitting at the corner table, papers spread around her like a bird's nest. She was sketching flyers for the Arts Center in bold strokes of color, her fingers smudged with graphite. Lily spotted her first, running to the table as though she belonged there. Emma looked up, surprised, then smiled as naturally as if she had been waiting for them. Another day it was the park. The grass was slick with morning dew, the air heavy with the metallic tang of rain. Nathan watched from a bench as Lily attempted to chase pigeons, her squeals echoing across the playground. And then, as if summoned, Emma appeared, carrying a paper bag. "Too many sandwiches for one person," she explained with a shrug, offering half to Nathan. He accepted, and they sat shoulder to shoulder, not speaking much, only watching Lily's curls bounce as she ran in uneven circles. There were evenings, too, late texts that began with casual questions. Did Lily ever finish her rainbow drawing? Or do you think kids actually like vegetables? Or is it just propaganda? Nathan found himself laughing at his phone, the sound startling in the empty apartment. He hadn't laughed like that in years, not since before the silence took over. It wasn't grand. It wasn't dramatic. But something in those stolen hours cracked open a part of him he had locked away. One Sunday they met at a bookstore. Lily tugged on Emma's coat, dragging her toward the children's section, where picture books leaned in bright stacks. Emma crouched down, reading aloud in a voice that gave every character its own life. Nathan watched from a distance, his chest tightening at the sight. His daughter leaning against Emma's shoulder, laughing at the turning of each page. Later, at the counter, they reached for the same novel, an old paperback, its spine cracked. Their hands touched briefly. Emma withdrew hers quickly, her cheeks coloring, but Nathan caught the quiet spark in her eyes before she looked away. By then, it no longer felt accidental. Nathan found himself carrying details of her like a secret. The way she tilted her head when listening, the faint paint stain near her thumb that never quite washed away, the cadence of her laugh when Lily made a joke only half funny. He realized that he was waiting for the next time. And then, without warning, the waiting stretched too far. It began with 2 unanswered texts. A simple "coffee tomorrow?" Ignored. Then a phone call that rang into silence. Then 3 days with no word. Nathan tried to be reasonable. She was busy. She had responsibilities. Maybe her phone had broken. But on the 4th day, the excuses felt brittle. By the 5th, they shattered entirely. On the 6th day, an envelope arrived in his mailbox. Handwritten, his name in careful, slanted script. He opened it at the kitchen table while Lily sprawled beside him, crayons scattered, drawing yet another family beneath yet another rainbow. "Nathan, I owe you honesty, not silence. You live in a world of contracts, glass towers, and certainty. I live in one of bus transfers and worn shoes. People like me are temporary, Nathan. We patch things, we pass through, we survive. People like you endure. I can't step into your world, not even for Lily, as much as she makes me wish I could." She deserves stability. She deserves someone who doesn't measure groceries against rent or hide overdue bills at the bottom of a bag. I don't belong in your story. Please don't look for me. Emma. The paper trembled in his hands, though the words were steady, without a crack in their logic. He read them again, slower this time, as if reading differently might change the meaning. But the truth was there, quiet and final. Beside him, Lily tugged his sleeve. Daddy, look! She held up her drawing proudly. 3 figures stood side by side, stick arms linked beneath a lopsided rainbow. She had labeled them with uneven letters. Dad. Me. Emma. Her voice softened. Is Emma mad at me? Nathan's throat tightened. He pulled her onto his lap, pressing his face against her curls. No, sweetheart. Not at you. Then why did she go away? He couldn't answer. He only held her closer, his eyes fixed on the crooked rainbow. For the first time in years, Nathan felt absence not as silence, but as a wound, sharp and undeniable. The skyscrapers of his world stood as tall as ever. The contracts waited. The routines pressed forward. But inside, something had shifted. He had lost before. He had learned to survive loss by shutting every door, by building walls high enough no one could reach him. But this time was different. Emma hadn't just stepped into his life. She had stepped into Lily's. And Lily had already drawn her into their family with the simple certainty only a child could hold. Nathan folded the letter carefully, slid it back into its envelope, and placed it on the counter. It sat there like a weight, heavy with the sound of what could have been. He stared at Lily's drawing, at the 3 smiling figures holding hands, and felt the ache of choice. He could let Emma slip away as she asked. Or he could fight, not with contracts or persuasion but with honesty. For the first time in years, Nathan realized he was afraid not of loss, but of never trying. The arts center smelled of old wood and paint, sweet, metallic, permanent. Faded posters clung to the walls, advertising plays performed years ago, children's workshops, community art nights where strangers had once gathered to make something together. The building had the tired beauty of a place held up by hope more than funding. Nathan hesitated at the entrance, Lily's drawing folded carefully in his pocket. His shoes felt too polished for this floor, his coat too expensive for the chipped hooks by the door. Yet he walked in anyway, following the echo of voices down a narrow hall. He found her in a classroom at the end, kneeling on the floor. A tray of cracked paint jars lay before her, and she was mending them with strips of tape and stubborn patience. Her sweater hung loose, the elbows worn thin, her hair tied back messily. She didn't hear him at first, too focused on coaxing life out of things others would have thrown away. Emma. She looked up sharply, startled, eyes wide. For a moment silence held. Then her expression hardened. You shouldn't be here. I know. He reached into his pocket, unfolded the drawing, and held it out. Her gaze fell on the paper. A rainbow arched across the top, 3 stick figures below, hand in hand. Dad. Me. Emma. The crayon letters uneven, the lines shaky, but the meaning unmistakable. Emma's breath caught. Her hand went to her mouth, as if the simple drawing pierced deeper than any words could. She drew this after your letter, Nathan said quietly. She thought you left because she did something wrong. His voice faltered. I don't know how to explain to her that people just disappear. Emma stood slowly, the room suddenly too small. Nathan. I closed myself off after my wife died. He went on, his words halting but steady. I thought it was safer. For me. For Lily. I built walls so high no one could reach us. But you did. Without trying. Without asking for anything. Emma shook her head, tears already gathering. I can't give her what she needs. What you need. I fix broken paint jars, Nathan. I walk everywhere because I can't afford a car. My shoes? She laughed bitterly, glancing down at the scuffed soles. They've been patched more times than I can count. What kind of future is that for a child? The kind that shows her love matters more than money, he said firmly. The kind that teaches her resilience, honesty, things she can't learn from skyscrapers. Emma's lips trembled. She turned away, wiping her face with the back of her sleeve. I don't want to be temporary in her life. Then don't be, he said simply. The room filled with silence, heavy and fragile. Then the sound of small footsteps echoed from the hall. Daddy! Lily stood in the doorway, clutching her stuffed rabbit. Her eyes lit up when she saw Emma. She ran forward, her curls bouncing, and wrapped her arms around Emma's legs. Miss Emma, you came back. Emma crouched, holding her tightly, unable to speak. Lily leaned close, her voice a whisper but clear enough for both adults to hear. You're part of our family now, right, Daddy? Nathan knelt beside them, his hand resting gently over Emma's. He looked at Lily, then at Emma, and for the first time in years, he felt something settle inside him. Something like peace, fragile but real. Yes, he said softly. She is. Emma met his gaze, her eyes wet but steady. There was no grand declaration, no sudden promise of forever. Just the quiet certainty that love had found them in the most ordinary of places, on a rainy street, in a crumpled dollar, in a child's drawing. And as Lily nestled between them, her small arms holding tight, Nathan realized that beginnings sometimes arrive disguised as reluctant favors, that a single act of kindness could ripple into something larger, binding strangers into a new kind of family. The world outside the arts center remained gray, the city still wet with rain. But inside, under the flicker of tired lights and the scent of drying paint, a fragile hope had taken root. And this time, Nathan knew he wouldn't let it slip away.